Hello again, this is YIIK, and yet again we're continuing the series for the fourth time on analyzing and understanding the story of Y2K, a postmodern RPG. If you haven't seen the previous videos, there's a link to the playlist in the description. I highly recommend it. And once more, I'll explain that I'll be covering 1.0, the original release of the game. There are some changes in later versions, and it'll be something I cover separately. After this time of hanging out with Rory and Michael, running around random record shops, we eventually meet Claudio. Claudio is actually the owner of all these record shops throughout New Jersey, and luckily he had seen the post on Onism.
Guys, desperately trying to track down Mystical Ultima LP Legend by Vela Wild. I can't explain it right now, but I promise it has something to do with the Star Creatures and Elevator Girl. If we find this, we can find EG and finally get to the bottom of this.
I run a record store, and I'll be on the lookout for it. I might know a collector who has it. I'll see him this weekend and be sure to ask him.
Which actually doesn't appear until later, but he knows exactly what we're looking for. Bad news, he doesn't have it, but he thinks he might know somewhere we can get it. So he grabs his sister, and we get 2 new party members for our wacky journey to this mountain. Around this time, there's a post on Onism that links directly to the Mount Town quest we're about to embark on. Mysterious haunting in Southern Cave.
Greetings from Mount Town. Rumors have been going around that there is a ghost haunting a nearby cave. I've been thinking of checking it out and seeing what the deal is.
I've also heard this rumor about the Mount Town cave. Apparently it's a girl in her 20s with long black hair, pale skin, I guess because she's dead, and glasses. Any chances it's the Elevator Girl?
This is the first I'm hearing of this. Has anyone gone to see if they could find the ghost? If you do, please confirm the appearance of the ghost or upload some photos. I'll try and get out there this weekend, but I'm stuck inside studying for the SATs all week.
Now, today's focus will be mostly on the story of Claudio and Chondra, but as always, I'll mention things that'll be important in future videos. So as we enter Mount Town, we see a lot of people invested in this spooky ghost story, haunting, or whatever, at the mountain cave. With several posts on Onism, some people draw a connection between this ghost and potentially Sammy. Even our good friend, Super Pudding, makes an appearance. While Alex is here on a different journey, it's a little odd that for some reason these details are lining up. As we journey up the mountain, we get to learn a lot about Claudio and Chondra.
We've lost someone before. We know what it's like. Maybe that's what drew me to the Sammy Park case.
I see. What about the soul survivors and all that?
Let's say we've had experience with the supernatural before.
I had a kid brother, you know. He went missing in 1985. Got on his bike one day to go to our neighbors. 7 houses up the street. And he just vanished. Never came back. We looked for him for months. Dad never stopped. Still hands out flyers at the grocery store every Sunday. He even got an artist to draw him aged.
Were there ever any leads or anything?
No one really ever investigated it. Sure, they looked around for him. And for a week they had a task force. They had one guy they suspected. But every lead fell through.
You act like they even tried. A 4-year-old black kid goes missing in a shit neighborhood, and you think they really tried?
Yeah, it's complicated, Alex.
I don't remember this being on the news or anything, and you're from Windtown, right? That's like an hour outside of Frankton. How the hell did this get national coverage?
Isn't it obvious, man? Same reason no one gives a shit about Sammy Park.
I'm sure if Aaron had been a beautiful white woman, everyone would have cared that he vanished. Everyone would have had a candlelight vigil and a moment of silence. But that's just not how these things work. And you know what's funny? My dad is a lawyer, and my mom was an assistant to the governor. It's not like we were shit no one people, you know? It just wasn't news or whatever they told us.
Alex, don't you think Sammy's parents tried to get some attention for their daughter's disappearance? It's not that easy. Those people you see on TV are people who can make a great story for the press. That's just the way it works.
This correlates with a syndrome in real life called missing white woman syndrome, where news media gives a disproportionate amount of attention to these stories, primarily because of racial stigmas. I want to take a moment to reflect and sort of analyze the situation and what it means for the characters. Claudio is the older brother in the situation. Generally, this is seen as a role of a protector of some sort. Although he seems really lighthearted and goofy, the disappearance of his brother definitely hangs heavy on him. He becomes obsessed with autism because he thinks that he can help other people. Even though this is something that happened a long time ago to him, he still puts up missing posters for his brother at all of his record shops across all of New Jersey. In other words, he's actively looking for ways to sort of prevent other people from having to deal with this pain of losing someone they care about, even if that means investing himself in situations that constantly remind him of this traumatic event. And Chondra reinforces this reading when she confronts Alex.
I hate to admit it, but sometimes I just wish we could let him go. My younger brother, you know? Not a day goes by where I don't think about him. And you know what's really funny? I don't even remember what he looks like. We have a few old photos, but most of them he just looks like every other kid to me. Round-faced, happy, playing video games, or falling off a bike.
You don't remember anything about him?
No, I don't think so. I think I only remember what people tell me about him. And you know what's funny? He was my twin brother. I was a minute older than him. Claudio still gets frustrated with me sometimes. You're his twin, can't you feel him out there? Or don't you have special twin powers that let you know if he's in pain? I don't believe in that stuff. Well, not usually. Sometimes I do. It's in those moments that I really do think he isn't out there anymore. If there was a connection, I'd feel something. And since there is nothing there, he must be gone. Sometimes people just vanish. They are there one moment and gone the next. Bad people take them, they fall into sewers. But life has to move on. It's harder for my parents, I think, since they made him and whatever. But Claudio? I don't think he'll ever move on. It's all he thinks about. And finding this Sammy Pat girl? This obsession you brought onto him? This shit isn't fair. He had one dead kid to worry about never finding, and now you gave him another.
Now, Chondra's story is a little different. It's not explained to us here, but it's explained to us much later in the story, with a couple of seemingly random conversations. Chondra's family took her and Claudio to Japan one year. Given some of the context, it would seem this might be a way to use Claudio's otaku nature to sort of comfort him after the loss of his brother. Here, Chondra ends up finding a friend named Beta Himura. She speaks extremely fondly of her, and even mentions how this interaction with this person in Japan shaped a lot of her personality. Her clothes and hula hoop all stem from meeting this person.
You want to know about my outfit? Okay. You're strange, Alex Eagleston. But I'll bite. Last Christmas, me, Claudio, and my parents went to Japan for Claudio's birthday. We stayed in Nakashibetsu with my dad's coworker. His parents left him their house when they passed away. We stayed there from mid-December to mid-January. I remember feeling scared arriving in Japan. I knew the culture shock was going to be one thing, but I didn't really know what it meant to immerse myself in another culture. The first 2 weeks, I hung with my parents while Claudio wandered around, coming back each night with crazy stories about the girls he was meeting and the fun he was having. That's the amazing thing about my brother. Even in a small town like Nakashibetsu, he can find people to inspire. His happiness is infectious sometimes. Doesn't help he's such a nerd. I'm a bit of a shy person, you know? But eventually I realized that people are the same in every country. I made a friend. Her English was terrible, even worse than my Japanese. So we started hanging out. And long story short, she bought me this on the last day of our trip. It took me a while to get over my fears, but when I did, I made a great friend in a girl named Bera. Bera taught me how to hula hoop, and for 3 weeks straight, we bonded over it. Sometimes, all it takes is one cool person to pull you out of your shell, you know?
While she describes Claudio as super friendly, he doesn't seem to get an attachment to somebody how Chondra does here. And notably, Chondra says that she doesn't really remember her brother who went missing.
No, I don't think so. I think I only remember what people tell me about him.
I feel like this sort of frames her relationship with her friend in Japan as something she might feel she had lost. Well, at least more than her brother. She didn't really have a connection with the literal brother she had that she lost, but she did have a deep personal connection with this friend she made. So now we get to the point of the video where I take a single innocuous line and compare it to a scene at some point in the game and show how this shows a much deeper meaning than it first really appears as. If you look at all the missing posters throughout the game, you'll notice that they say Alexander UNKRICH. And at the end of the game, on the planet of Lonely Star Children, you'll see this same kid at this same tree, dressed exactly the same, just standing there. Actually, this photo looks exactly the same as where he's standing here. The immediate assumption is that, oh, this is Claudio and Chondra's missing brother, that he was just like Alex. But if we take a moment and rewind it back, we see that the brother's name isn't Alexander. The brother's name is Aaron.
I'm sure if Aaron had been a beautiful white woman, everyone would have cared that he vanished.
So what does this mean? As we've seen with Michael, as we've seen with Rory, as we've seen with Sammy in the past few videos, there's something that Alex is doing here to manipulate the narrative. To make this point a bit better, I want to take a couple of phone calls from the end of the game.
Son.
Dad?
Where the hell have you been? We were worried sick about you. You said you were just going to bike to Justin's house. Claudio and your mom are freaking out.
Hey Alex, it's your mom. When are you coming home? Claudio's waiting for you to watch some cartoons.
I think the best way to describe what this says about Alexander is that he was a neighborhood kid that Claudio and Chondra babysat. In this, Alex calls Chondra Dad, showing how he really felt close to these two, and how he, sort of like Michael, put them in a role of replacing his absent parents. So, because Alexander felt close to these two, when Aaron goes missing, Alexander, as a young kid who probably doesn't realize what it feels like to lose a sibling, instead almost sees himself as a replacement for the brother they had lost. This likely causes a lot of friction between them, and when Alex is given narrative control over the story, he edits the missing posters to coincide with his feelings of the circumstance. Because afterwards, he feels like the brother that is lost in this situation. He takes his pain and his story and puts that in front of Claudio and Chondra's story. Now I know you're kind of wondering how I come to this sort of conclusion. Well, I don't know if I can describe it super well in this video, but the main aspect you use to understand something like this is the idea of parallel lives. If Alexander exists on the planet of Lonely Star Children at the end, and is a parallel Alex, then that means that he likely lived a similar life to Alex. What we know about who Alex is and the behaviors he displays are similar actions to what Alexander could have done. This is why when I mention the sort of projection he does on Rory or Michael or Sammy, all of those are at play here with Alexander and how he projects on Claudio's story. There's more I could say here, but I'll leave that to other videos. For this one, I'd like to thank Robin for voice acting Reaction Dog, Tez the Kid for voicing Paper Shivers, Lunafreya VA for voicing Superb Pudding, Linguistic Spaceship for voicing Vera Former, and Ropesnek for not only voicing Chrono Cross, but also providing the amazing character art you've seen throughout this series.